Welcome to the Old Man of the Three with JJ Redick and Tommy Alter, presented by Cash App and brought to you by 342 Productions. This is episode 86, Kemba Walker. Tommy, you and I are fans of Kemba. This was a great conversation. For a little bit of a reference point, and for the listener, I had Kemba on prior to Tommy and I teaming up at The Ringer. I had Kemba on the JJ Redick podcast back in the summer of 17 or 18, and we kind of touched on his upbringing, his time at UConn, early in his NBA career. There is some discussion of his early NBA career, but a lot of what we touch on is his last couple of years in Charlotte, his time in Boston, his experience thus far with the Knicks, and then we get into some broader stuff in the NBA. It's a great conversation. He's one of the greatest human beings in the NBA.
We needed some Knicks representation.
Yeah,
we just need it. It's been too long. We can't get a month and a half into the season with no Knicks content.
I agree. And we get into a lot of Knicks content. Tommy, I should address something. So, look, I realize that when you go on ESPN, and even with this podcast, it happens occasionally, when you go on ESPN and you do a segment, there's then a quote that gets attributed to you, and everything it's a soundbite. Everybody's looking for sound bites. I get it.
Yeah, it's the way of the internet.
It's the way the internet.
2021.
We've had it happen with us on the podcast. We've had it happen with our guests on the podcast. It's fine. I'm not complaining about it. That's just. But what I thought we could do, we could have a little bit more of a discussion on the MVP race thus far.
Wait, can you explain though what got taken out of context? And
not out of context. I'll stand by what I said. What I said was, you could make an argument. This was 2 days ago. This was on Tuesday. We're recording this on Thursday. You could make an argument. This was after DeMar had another great night. You could make an argument that as of right now, DeMar DeRozan is third in the MVP race. Now, obviously, DeMar did not play great last night. The Bulls lost to Portland. Since then, Steph went crazy in Brooklyn. I get it. These things are constantly changing. My point was, he has to have at least some consideration right now at this point in the season for top five in the MVP. And everybody freaked out because I didn't say Jokic's name. And it's like, no shit. He was the MVP last year, and he's putting up similar, if not better, numbers this year. And he's basically dragging an injured Denver team in playoff contention. Like, I get it.
I have a question. Are you not realizing as you've made this transition a little bit, and I'm sure you saw this playing, but are you realizing a little bit more how just crazy some fan bases are?
That's what it is.
Like, I'll give you the Warriors fans are still mad. You didn't say anything negative about the Warriors.
I would never say. I've been a Warrior. As a basketball fan, I've been a Warriors fan for the last 8 years. Yeah. I wanted to beat them, but I could appreciate good basketball.
Yeah.
No, it's funny because I went on First Take a week later, and I apologized to Stephen A. And I said they do look like the best team in basketball, and you certainly could consider them favorites, but let's not discount any of the teams in the East when fully healthy. And later that night, Brooklyn beat, or the Warriors beat Brooklyn in Brooklyn, and there were hundreds of people attacking me on Twitter about the Warriors not having a signature win yet. And I'm like, dude, I've already acknowledged they're good. Like, what do you want me to say? Yeah. But I had this really good discussion with someone yesterday. Over an 82 game season, there's so many ups and downs for a team, for a player. Meanwhile, we live in a 24/7 news cycle world, and there's constantly reactions to that. And that's truthfully, that's a challenge that I'll have to sort of manage as I go forward at ESPN, which, by the way, has been super enjoyable. I did SVP last night in person down in DC. He's the man. He's one of the GOATs ever at ESPN. Love that dude. Even though he's from Maryland, it's all good.
I was going to say.
But to get to the MVP talk, so to me, there's two clear favorites, two guys that are playing at a really high level, and their team, other than that blowout loss to the Warriors, the Nets are, I think, in the last 9 or 10 games, second or third in the NBA, or third or fourth, or something.
Yeah, they're
tied. So they're playing great basketball. So I think it's Kevin Durant and Stephen Curry. The next tier of guys in terms of, for me, who's playing great basketball right now is Paul George, DeMar DeRozan, and Nikola Jokic.
Well, so this is what I was going to ask you. I grabbed the FanDuel futures for as of today's taping. They listed out the top 6, and I'll read them off to you. Steph Curry's plus 230, KD's plus 500, Giannis plus 700, Jokic plus 1,000, Luka plus 1,300, Jimmy Buckets, our old friend, plus 1,900. Missing on that list is DeMar DeRozan. Missing on that list is Paul George. Missing on that list is Devin Booker. They've won 10 in a row. Do you think – so I guess my question with you with the DeMar conversation is that doesn't seem like an unreasonable take with A, how he's playing, and B, how the team is playing.
It's not an unreasonable take.
And it's not a guy that's come out of nowhere. I mean, DeMar DeRozan is a Team USA, multi-time Team USA all-star. You know, this is not this is I don't know.
So here's a question, and I know how clips get chopped up on the internet, but I would just say this. If you're on a television show and the producer tells you, hey, we're going to do a Bulls segment and we're going to ask you about DeMar DeRozan, I feel obliged to talk about DeMar DeRozan and the Bulls during that segment. I don't feel any sort of obligation to go on a tangent about the Nuggets and Jokic.
Yeah.
You know, that's the point. By the way, I want to look at this list one more time. So Jimmy, by the way, came back last night with 31, 10, and 10 against the Pelicans, but 31, 10, and 10. If he stays healthy for the majority of the season, he'll be in the running. Luka, obviously, when he comes back, he'll be in the running. I kind of like this Giannis play, man. Giannis, I looked up his numbers today. He had 47 last night. He's not being talked about. He's having as good of a season as he's ever had. They've had so many injuries. They've had COVID issues. They've got Brook Lopez coming back from injury, Dante DiVincenzo coming back from injury. I'd say let's give it another 35 or 50 games before we start having a serious discussion. But in the first 14 or 15 games, let's acknowledge that DeMar DeRozan is worthy of a top 5 MVP discussion.
So do you attribute the Bucks struggles, I would say, is a fair term so far? They're 7 and 8 right now. Do you attribute that really to the COVID stuff and the injury stuff, or do you think there's something is there any sort of like post-finals hangover?
There's definitely not a post-finals hangover with Giannis.
Yeah,
because that motherfucker's out for blood every night. But here's an interesting stat for you. Chris, Drew, and Giannis have played 3 games together. Last night was the 3rd game they've all been in the lineup. They're 3-0 in those games. I'm not hitting the panic button on Milwaukee. They're still the defending champs. If you had to make a prediction right now, this is not a betting prediction. Just like who ends up winning MVP.
I don't think it's a tough call. I think it's Steph. I think Steph is the odds-on favorite. I don't think that. Yeah, I think even there's a wide gap even between him and Kevin. I think where that team, the trajectory they're on, and how he's looking right now is it's not a hot take. I mean, it is what it is. And
sportsbooks obviously reflect that. If you want to go on FanDuel, by the way, I was playing around the app the other day. There's a ton of awesome stuff on there. Very easy to use. If you want to bet on FanDuel, you got to be 21 or over. Age and location restrictions apply. You can see the full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Last thing, Tommy, before we get to Kemba, I know this has been a little long-winded, but live show, we haven't talked about it on the pod yet. Live show is coming to South Florida. We're going to do a live show on December 7th, a crossover live show with the Long Shot. Duncan and Davis are going to join us. We're going to be joined by a couple of Heat players. We'll surprise the audience night of, whatever you want to say. This is December 7th. It's at the Broward Center in Fort Lauderdale. It's a great venue. Really excited about this.
Really excited. We had to, with the amount of love we showed to the city of Miami on the show, that had to be our first stop out of New York. There's no other option.
Our first road game had to be Miami. So really excited about that. And if you want to grab tickets for our show, you can go to browardcenter.org, BROWARD center.org. Go get tickets. Let's go. Speaking of really excited, Tommy, one more thing. We're going to have some awesome Black Friday deals and Cyber Tuesday, Cyber Monday, Giving Tuesday, or whatever it is. We're going to have a bunch of stuff on our merch page. New merch is coming, shop.342.com. Go check that out. A lot of cool stuff. So we'll have something for Black Friday, something for Cyber Monday, and something for Giving Tuesday. So give that a look, shop.342.com. All right, let's get to our guy, Kemba Walker.